Welcome to Speed Talk Live, which isn't really live, but is a poorly produced podcast featuring me and my big mouth rattling off, sometimes incoherently, about racing and sometimes featuring what we hope are interesting guests. I'm Greg Engel. Let's get this party started. All right, welcome to Speed Talk Live this week. I have got Owen Johnson, who found the time from his busy schedule there in London as he becomes the next greatest lawyer in the world, to join us. We're gonna have him co-hosting today. Hey, Owen, how are you, my friend?
Hey, Greg, I'm doing great. How about you?
Good to see you. I know it's been a busy week for you. It's been a busy week here, and it's only Tuesday. But let's talk about Phoenix. Christopher Bell and Toyota broke the juggernaut that was Chevrolet. And Toyota actually swept the weekend, starting with the ARCA race and then Xfinity. The only thing with Xfinity race, Justin Allgaier was leading that thing and looked like he had it wrapped up, and then man, he blew that tire out. But things could have been different. But it ended up that Chandler Smith won in a Toyota, so they swept that, and then they went on to have Denny Hamlin win the pole, and then of course Bell winning the race. And Joe Gibbs Racing had 3 of its 4 cars inside the top 10, and Hamlin finished just outside the top 10 and 11th. He spun, he took credit for that, took the blame for that, and ended up in 11th. So were you expecting, I think both of us were expecting that Chevy may not be on top this weekend. I don't know about you, but I wasn't expecting Toyota to come in here and actually kick everybody's ass.
Well, I don't know if you remember, but I think Hamlin was my pick over the last week, so
You
I
know
think
what?
I
You're right. Yeah.
called it a little bit there.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
I have to take some credit, but they won at the Clash, so I think they are proving that the Toyota right now is really good on short tracks, and it just so happens that this short track is where the season ends, so it's a good place to be good.
It is, and I think there was some disappointment in the short track package that NASCAR unveiled here, and they tested a month ago before that. I think it did what NASCAR wanted to do. I don't think they wanted to do anything too extreme, and they made some small incremental changes. And I think Toyota did a better job with their notebook this week. But the Chevy, they had one lone Chevy inside the top 10. And what really surprised me was the lack of performance from the Hendrick cars. Larson led them. He was the highest finishing Hendrick car. He was only 14th. But David Wilson, president of Toyota Racing Development, said after the race, he was happy with the performance because they brought the new Camry body in, but he still knows it's a long season.
Well, I'll start by just congratulating Christopher and Adam. I find it really special, the relationship that they've developed. Adam is such a good leader, and truly was a team effort to get to the finish line. For Toyota, this was a momentous win. This was the first win with our new Camry body. I was clear to say at the beginning of the year that we have struggled here recently, and I didn't realize this statistic until it was brought to my attention, but the 4 previous Phoenix races, Toyota's led a combined 15 laps. And today we led today we led everything but 16 laps or 14 laps. So certainly that is a credit to this team, to the Joe Gibbs Racing organization, to TRD USA, to our design partners, Calty Design, who helped us with this new Camry body. But at the same time, I will say that the secret to longevity in sports, in motorsports, is never get too high. When the day goes your way, and never get too low when it doesn't. Because we're going to be racing again next week, and Phoenix will be in our rearview mirror.
So like we said, Camry's new for 2024. And prior to the season, Wilson said he felt it was the best body they'd ever put on the track.
So obviously, I was talking about the numbers that we see on paper, right? The wind tunnel, the CFT, and I know how much effort, really, it was unprecedented how closely TRD USA and Joe Gibbs Racing worked together on that body. But I may have said, because I say this all the time, you don't race wind tunnels, you don't race dynos, and you could be the best on paper, but unless you have the talent behind the steering wheel and the team and the pit crews to put an entire race together, the rest is meaningless. So certainly what we've seen 4 races in validates a lot of our optimism. But we have a whole lot of racing left to go, and we have more intermediates and more big tracks and more short tracks to truly evaluate where we are.
And David Wilson, obviously a great cheerleader for Toyota. But I don't think we needed to dismiss the Fords, because the Fords were actually up there and doing well. The question becomes, do you think because this long season that Chevy and Ford are going to catch up and we're going to get this parity that NASCAR strives so to have among the OEMs?
I think we've still yet to see NASCAR's bread and butter track in a mile and a half. Obviously, we've had Atlanta, which is a mile and a half, but it races like a super speedway. So I'm looking forward to seeing some of the next races. We've seen Vegas where there was some incredible parity, and I think it was the top 6 featured two of each manufacturer. So I think on that kind of track, there's incredible parity. I think the rest of the brands just need to figure out how to find speed in the short tracks that Toyota has right now.
Do you think that the changes they made with the short track package, am I right in saying that it was small changes that made some small differences, and maybe that was what NASCAR was going for? Or do you think they should have gone farther?
I think the popularity of the race, if social media is anything to go by, I don't think they went far enough. Now, they changed where the downforce is going, so they didn't change anything with the horsepower, which I think a lot of fans have been asking for. They just made it so there's a little bit more downforce at the back and a lot less at the front, trying to get the cars a bit looser so they could pass in traffic. I think it worked to an extent, but it was, I mean, Ty Gibbs could pass. I think there was a restart where he passed something like 10 cars. He could clearly pass cars pretty easily, but it was a very dominant performance. And in the era of parity, that's not always the most popular.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, we got Richmond coming up. That's kind of another short track. Obviously, Martinsville, and we're going to talk about Bristol here in a few minutes. But it's going to be interesting to see if they've maybe continue to tweak the package or leave it alone. Everybody, there was people, you talk about social media, and it's such a driver of this sport now. It really is. And people on social media were saying, well, give the title to Toyota, and Bell could have won last year. And they're right. He could have won the title last year, but he lost a brake rotor. So now when he comes back, you would think they're going to have an advantage. But even Bell said that despite the win Sunday, he knows that when they come back here in November, the race is going to be different.
Just because everyone is going to have so much more development time on this aero package. And, we showed up in the Hendrick cars. They clearly missed it this week, right? And they're not going to miss it in November whenever a championship's on the line, and they've had however many races to, get their setup dialed in. So clearly the JGR cars and the Toyota group hit on the setup the best, and we saw that in 2022 whenever Next Gen was first introduced. The Fords smoked everybody this race. So it just takes time with these changes to optimize it. And we're on the winning side of it this time, but the field is going to be, tighter. And I would expect that, the favorites are going to be up front whenever we come back in November.
What I'm interested to see really is how this race compares to Bristol, since Bristol does not have the package. This is the same short track package. So I'm curious if it's just a product of the new cars that Toyota and Ford and even Chevy to an extent have brought this year, or if there's really some changes that NASCAR's made, because I think the racing was different, but it wasn't all that different from what we've seen with the Next Gen on short tracks.
It is going to be interesting to see. And you're right. And it's a long season. We're 4 races in. We've got a lot of racing to go, and a lot could happen. So we'll see what happens in the future. But I like Phoenix. I think it was good. Bell was a popular winner. I think he's great whenever he wins. He's one of those guys that I think for most people, at least, if my driver doesn't win, if Bell wins, then fine. That's great. Good for him. So So it's great to see. And you're right. The short track package still needs some work, and hopefully, and I don't think NASCAR, I think NASCAR keeps an eye on social media, but I don't think they don't live and die by it. So we'll see
Which
what
is fair enough.
happens. Yeah, we'll see what happens. So there's a wrap up of Phoenix.
Why, you little maggot! You make me want to vomit!
All right. We got so many rants this week that I wanted to include Owen in on it. And I'm going to rant one thing to you that we didn't talk about before you came on. Have you been able to get to the pub yet and get a NASCAR race on TV?
I told you last week, it's such a hard channel to get that no pub carries it. It's ridiculous.
You got to give them your
We've gotta-
login. Give them your Fox
that's what we'll
Sports
do.
app login, and we'll see. And
Yeah.
and pictures or it never happen. So we'll see that. So there's one rant out of the way. One of the rants I have this week it was post race at Phoenix. The thing is, when somebody has an accident, and we don't want to see anybody have an accident, Ford had quotes from their driver that had an accident, and Chevy always does. But one thing you always see, no matter who it is the manufacturer, used to be, the manufacturers would have, even if their driver finished in, one of the top drivers finished in last place or had an early exit, you would always see a quote from them, and people will say, well, you're there at the track and you can run down. You can't always get all these drivers post race. You only have a few minutes to grab these drivers, and you can't drive them. So a lot of times we depend on those manufacturers' quotes. And one of the things that really bugs me that they're starting to get away from, and Toyota and Ford still will get some of their lower ranking, lower finishing drivers and get some quotes from them. But this week, Chevy had nothing from the Hendrick drivers. And that to me was a huge story. What happened with Hendrick? Did you just miss it? And again, you can't run to every driver post race. You don't have time for that. And I thought it was a big fail on Chevy's part not to have the quotes come out from the Hendrick drivers to at least get an explanation. We didn't have a post race. A lot of these teams send out post race press releases. We didn't get that from Hendrick. The only thing I saw from them is today. This is Tuesday. The only thing I saw from them was how well their pit crews did. And that's great. And you need to put a positive spin on it. I get it. But you also got to take the bad with the good. So I want to see I want to see those quotes come out. We already know Chevy does not do quotes for Xfinity. They don't do the quotes for the Truck Series. That's fine. That's a battle. But I'm hoping that, they start getting a little better at getting some of these guys who may not have done as well that we expect up at the front. Because I think it's just as important to tell that story as it is the other ones. And again, unless, you've got some of these outlets that have 4 or 5 people at the track that can cover all the drivers, you can't singularly cover every single stinking driver in the field post race and run up and down pit road. It's just can't hardly do that. So I think I think you probably have been through the same thing with me, Owen, that you see where we're not getting quotes, and you've been to track, so you know how hard it can be to try and run up and down pit road and grab everybody, post race.
Absolutely. And I know just how hard it is without the Xfinity and truck quotes, since I've had to live with that forever for Chevy. But I think the biggest story for me was on the Hendrick side is it's not like they weren't at the front all day.
Yeah.
They were running up front for a fairly significant portion of the race and then just could not get there at the end. So I definitely wanted to see that story, and I'm looking forward to some of the releases before Bristol this week, when maybe they'll tell us some of that in there. And you'll find that in the preview if it is.
I have a feeling we're not. I have a feeling that they're getting, we're getting back to the PR side of things, right? And I do media relations and PR work for government agencies outside here. That's my day job. And a lot of times we call it putting on your tap shoes. You put on your tap shoes and you dance around the subject. And I think that's what's happening here. And on one hand, I get it. Being a PR guy, you want to do that, but I also think the story needs to be told. And it was a shame that we didn't get that story because I don't think anybody picked it up. So let's talk about something else that came up this week, and that's content creators versus reporters. I mentioned there's a site, frontstretch.com. I don't mind saying it. And this is nothing against them. They are great people and great young guys who work really hard. And a lot of people get their start from there. And they have a lot of coverage at this tracks and good for them. And this is not directed at them at all. But I started to learn the difference about content creators and reporters. I come from a background, I started as a newspaper reporter, and there was a certain set of ethics and journalistic integrity that went along with that. And if you didn't meet that, you were looking for another job. And I've seen people that's happened to. When you check your sources and you get your secondary sources and you confirm things. A story came out this week. One of the Stewart haulers that was going out to swap cars for Phoenix and Vegas was involved in a minor accident, and they parked on the side of the road for whatever reason. A car sideswiped them. Nobody was hurt. There was no damage, no big deal. Well, somebody started posting on social media the pictures and started speculating that, it was a horrible, terrible wreck. And a lot of us that are reporters called them out for the fact that, you could have called the team, which somebody did. Jerry Jordan, as a matter of fact, did that from Kicking the Tires. Great guy and a very seasoned reporter. Was call the team. What happened? Excuse me. That's when we found out it was just a minor accident, and he was the one that really did that. And the poor guy who had put that out there and was saying it was a horrible accident and all that. I really started to get the fact that he's not really a reporter. He's a content creator. And there's some great content creators there, and they go to the track and they wear the swag, and they pose in front of the cars and they take pictures of the cars and they put that out there. And this has grown into that. Social media has grown into that, where content creators do their thing and they do it well, and it's not necessarily a hard news story. And when a content creator is trying to do a hard news story, they just need to get it right, which is, okay, I saw this, it's a news story, it's something that's outside of my lane. Let's make sure that the next time, or let's make sure that I do the right thing. If I was a reporter, I call the team, I call the police department, I call somebody to find out and get the information confirmed. Was it a horrible accident? Was it just a minor fender bender? And do it that way. So I was a little miffed at this person who did this, was, and it seemed like they were trying to increase their Twitter followers. I'm sorry, Elon, the X followers. And but I really thought about it later, and we have to differentiate between content creators and actual people that are reporters. There's a couple sites out there. I know Elena's King. I'll mention her. She's great, man. She's a hell of a content creator, puts a lot of great NASCAR content out there. And there's a lot of people that do that. And God bless them. And there's plenty of room for them. But all I'm asking is, if you stray over into the reporter lane, by all means, make sure you're doing it right. Just like me, if I'm going to stray into the content lane and just put content out there, I want to make sure I'm doing it right. So that's my rant on that. I don't know, what's your thoughts on that, Owen?
Well, I think content creators, like you say, are incredibly valuable for NASCAR and just getting the audience out there. I think there's a lot of young fans who get into NASCAR through that. But I think you're completely right. I think steering into news, just because they have so many fans, because of the nature of the work they do involves getting fans, they're just inherently more likely to mislead more people. So I think that there just needs to be a little bit more thought put into some things, I think. And it's not just going into breaking news stories. I think there was a time, one of the races last year, maybe 2 years ago, where they started trying to got into the media, got credentialed, and came to the race and started asking provocative questions, trying to maybe make videos. I'm not entirely sure what, but that, I think there needs to be a differentiation between what the media is doing. And I mean, obviously you have far more experience than I do. I try to learn from you as best as I can and live up to that standard.
Well,
but
sir.
well, you're very kind. And then try to reach that standard and not be creating this kind of provocative content under the guise of media.
And
exactly.
A lot of times it's clickbait. And I'll always say that the biggest downfall has been social media is the Google AdSense that delivers the ads, and they pay you on a certain amount of ads, right? If you show X number of ads, you'll get paid a certain amount. So they don't really care about the content. They just want to get the And there are sites, there are farms that do this now, that the only reason they exist are to pull these clickbaity headlines out of NASCAR content, put it on their page, and they don't care about the content, and they don't care about who's writing it. They just want to serve those ads, and that's huge. And content creators can sometimes stray into that, and I get it, because they want to attract, and get more followers, because that's what they're all built on. So I get it, and we'll see about that. So in the future, and hopefully, if a content creator decides to jump into our lane, they'll do a little more diligence next time, and not get so roasted on social media. And speaking of getting roasted on social media, we had National Women's Day last month, or last week. Fantastic. I loved highlighting all the women in the sport and the industry, in not just NASCAR, but a lot of industries and a lot of motorsports, and it was great to see, and all the highlights. And I know you were talking about, we had a young female who from the F1 Academy that you
Right.
reported on last week.
Yeah, we got an article up on our sister site Carraganza about Dorian Pin, who, well, she crossed the checkered flag first in the two F1 Academy races in Saudi Arabia. Lost the second one because she saw the checkered flag twice at speed. They gave her a 20-second time penalty. She finished 9th in that race. But despite the miscalculation there, she showed that she is a really incredible talent. She's obviously raced in IMSA. We've covered her a little bit there as well. And she's got a tremendous background in sports car racing that's translating well over to Formula One. And I think, there's plenty of female drivers in NASCAR to watch, but I think she's another driver to watch just in the racing scene generally. She's going to be a huge talent, I think.
And that's just one of the many women that were highlighted last week in motorsports. And hey, man, I'm all for it. I love it. And something I talked about in a rant a couple weeks ago was the trolls seem to have lessened. And the trolls being, anytime Bubba Wallace wins, for example, we get a lot of racist trolls out there. That's gotten a lot better. When Raja won, I didn't really see that, so that was good. I was happy to see that. Unfortunately, this week, a top female in the industry, and she doesn't work in NASCAR anymore. And I'm not going to mention her name because I didn't reach out to her and let her know that we're going to talk about this. But she got an email that she shared on social media, and God bless her for that was brave of her to do. She shared an email that she got from somebody who said some very disparaging words to her, and she called him out on social media. The guy, and I showed a screen, we're showing a screenshot of the email, so I'm not going to talk about the actual content of it, but it was wrong. It was stupid. The guy's an idiot. I don't mind telling him that. And in a little twist to that, yesterday he started answering her back. And you would think that all of a sudden he's making some big deal that he's quote unquote revealing who he is. Well, his account that he is responding on was made yesterday. So he's not really like busting himself out. But he tried, and look, he's an a-hole, and he's just like any other troll. He's looking for attention. I told him I hope he gets the mental health help he needs, because obviously he's trying to get attention. And unfortunately he did, and he disparaged someone who's really big in all of motorsports. And I feel bad for her, and I feel bad for all the women that have to put up with that crap. And it is crap. And more of us men need to speak up and defend that, and not set back on our hands and take that that kind of talk, that kind of speech, that kind of things. So I feel bad for her. The guy's an idiot. I hope he gets kicked off of the platform, and hope we never hear from him. But I think that this female who got this is understanding that there's more of us men out here who support her and the others in this industry, and whatever industry it is. I don't care what it is, broadcasting, motorsports, whatever. We're here to support you. We're thrilled that you're making inroads, and that you're on an equal with us. And moving forward, you continue to shine.
Absolutely. And I think, like you said, it's incredibly important to share that and very brave to do so. I think another person we mentioned, Alanis King, earlier, I think she's always been very vocal about sharing the fact that it's unfortunately not that uncommon. And that's a massive problem. I mean, I don't have high hopes for Twitter or X or whatever it's at now that he's going to get banned and kicked off it, but
No.
um, that's what should be happening. It's not a pleasant environment to work in. It's not
It's
encouraging
not.
more people to get into the sport, which we need.
It's not. And these people, I like the block button is my friend. And I reached out to the guy. He never answered me, which tells me everything I need to know. But I love what Alanis does. When she gets those kind of comments, she doesn't hesitate to put it in the comments. And I love that about her. And God bless her. And I think if she could live in a Chili's, she'd be happy in her Mazda. So good for her. And those are the type of people we need in this industry, male and female. So it's great. So I was sorry to hear it. I hope that she understands that there's more of us that support her out here than disparage her. And I hope this idiot goes back in his mom's basement or back under the bridge and feed his goats, because he's a troll and he's nothing. And we are wiping our hands of him. So anyway, let's look forward to Bristol. Let's back to the racetrack. So we're going back to Bristol this week, but for the first time in 3 years, we're not going to have dirt on the track. As a matter of fact, it's been repaved. And guess who won last year? Christopher Bell, but he did it on the dirt. This year, going back to the pavement. So let me ask you, Owen, who do you got in your radar for this week at Bristol?
I've seen a lot of speed out of the Fords, and I have not seen them deliver on it. So I think it's time that the Fords deliver. Obviously, Logano was on the pole twice already this year. Was fastest in practice at Phoenix, never showed any of that speed during the race, got caught up. But I think Blaney was fast during the race. The RFK cars were fast during the race. I think it's time that a Ford shows up. With the intermediate package, I think they have a chance.
You know who I think, and speaking of the Fords, I agree with you on the Fords. I think it'll be it's Ford's time to step up to the plate. We've had Chevy, we've had Toyota. Now let's get the Fords out there. And you know somebody who impressed me at Phoenix last week, who quietly avoided trouble and had a great spot, was Chris Buescher. And in the Roush Fenway Keselowski team. I mean, they finished both in the top 10. I think they've got some things going on. I think that one of those cars could be a contender this weekend. I agree with you. I think the Fords, but you know what? It wouldn't surprise me to see Chase Elliott come to victory lane there. He ran of the Hendrick cars. He seemed to run the best last weekend at Phoenix, but that doesn't matter. So that's who I think. Anyway,
I've got one driver to watch who I think is a perennial dark horse and who's been running well in pretty much all the races so far this year, and that's Michael McDowell. I don't know if he's necessarily a pick to win, but I think he's definitely a pick to run really well. He ran, I think it was 8th last week.
Yep.
And they've shown some speed in that Front Row Motorsports team so far this year. They're going to ally with Penske going forward. And I think they've got a lot more Ford support than they've enjoyed in the past. And I think we've seen some speed out of them.
So there you go. We got Bristol. We're wrapping up Phoenix, and we'll see what happens as we come into the season, the 5th race of the year. 5 down, 31 to go. Owen, thank you, my friend. I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to come. And again, we're going to get you to a pub and get the Fox Sports login so we can get on the TV.
Well, thanks for having me on.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate you taking time out to listen. We will see you next week. Take care, everybody. Thanks for listening to Speed Talk Live. For questions or just to tell us how bad our production is or to leave other feedback, leave us a comment below. For all the latest NASCAR news, visit www.cupscene.com. Until next time, peace out and let's go racing.